Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? It is Geoff Mosher, and back with us is Andrew DiCecco filling in for Adam Kaplan. Adam is traveling in transit off to the owners' meetings, so he'll be doing the good work, fighting the good fight down at the owners' meetings in Orlando. Poor guy's got to go to Florida for the moment. So next podcast, I'm sure Adam will have a good update from what goes on at the owners' meetings, and we'll get into that in a minute. Of course, Inside the Birds is presented by our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. It is the exclusive Jersey Shore resort of Inside the Birds. Sometimes, Andrew, we have you come on to fill in for Adam or fill in for myself, but the timing of it sometimes really works out well too, because the Eagles are not only in the middle of doing the type of value free agent signings of guys who round out the roster, like kind of guys that not only you specialize in with free agency, but now pro days are happening. We're gonna get into that with you. Pro visits, official visits are being taken place, so we'll get into that with you as well. And it'll be a fun podcast because the Eagles made a couple of, about 3 signings, and then of course there's the Haason Reddick situation that's still lingering over the team, and you got pro days. So you got a little bit of everything going on right now with the Eagles right now.
Yeah, I mean, everyone thinks that the offseason is going to be a walk in the park, but I've never been busier, honestly, in all my years covering the Eagles.
It's been pretty wild of an offseason so far. At some point, we can do a tally on how many new players the Eagles bring in. It's got to be, if we did a leaderboard, I would think the Eagles are among the league leaders, if not in the lead. But again, a lot of these signings, 1-year signings, not guaranteed to make the team, value signings, as we call them. So we'll talk about the most recent ones here in the pod. A couple of announcements. Andrew, and this is why it works out well, Andrew's mock draft 3.0 drops today on InsideTheBirds.com. In fact, it might be already out and up on InsideTheBirds.com by the time you're listening to this podcast. So, Andrew, I won't have you, spill the beans on it. We want people to go read it in the website, and then maybe in the next pod, you'll talk it over with Adam. But just give me a little, give me something from your mock draft that might intrigue the reader.
An offensive player in the second round, and we'll leave it there.
Okay.
It might not be a position that you think.
I like that.
I'll leave it there. I don't want to give away too much because I want everybody to go to InsideTheBirds.com and check it out. But I think it'll be an intriguing one. But I put a lot of thought into it, as I always do, and you're able to rationalize the decision if you really, sort of comb through it, and it does make some sense.
That's fascinating because if I'm not mistaken, and I don't have it in front of me, in your first 2 mock drafts, I believe you had Eagles going corner and linebacker. 1.0, you had second round corner. I think it was Rickstra. And then second one, 2.0, I believe you had a linebacker.
Edgerrin Cooper.
Edge Cooper, right. So now you're saying.
But I don't, as we move forward through the pre-draft process, I don't think he's going to be there at 50. Never say never, but I mean, look, he's testing through the roof. He's impressed. He's checked off every box throughout the cycle. So it's kind of tough to envision him being there at 50, but you never know.
Yeah, well, I have my own indicator is when Greg Cosell starts salivating over someone, I tend to think that person's probably going to go higher than I originally thought too. And Greg Cosell has really liked the tape that he's seen from Edgerrin Cooper. And that's a pretty good segue because not only is your mock draft out today, but on Tuesday, the next installment of the Intel with Greg Cosell will drop. It is the first installment this year of NFL draft preview, and we're going to focus on wide receivers in the first episode. So we've got 5 left, starting, wide receivers is 1, then 3 or 4 more positional previews before we do a draft recap. That'll carry us all the way into May and do a draft recap with Greg Cosell. So everybody, man, the last video we did with Greg, or the last Intel with Greg Cosell, where he just recapped free agency, was a very popular video. I want to just personally thank everybody who watched it. I think there's over 20,000 views right now. So a lot of people want to know what Greg felt about the class of free agents that the Eagles signed in the first wave. And now they will get to hear his breakdown. This is what people love most from Greg, the breakdowns of the college prospects. We start off with wide receivers. Andrew, just real quick on that. This has to be one of the deeper, you and I have talked about this, deeper classes of wide receivers in quite a while. You may not find outside of the top five like superstars in the making, but I commonly hear like you're going to get starting or really key contributors maybe in the second and third, maybe even early fourth round.
Absolutely. And as I'm going through it, and I'm like, oh, I forgot about that guy. Forgot about that guy. There is so much talent throughout the entirety of the draft. So if the Eagles don't get one in rounds 1, 2, or 3, don't worry. They're going to probably find a contributor, whether it be as a number 3 receiver or developmental prospect. There's a lot to like in this class, and it all depends on what you're looking for. I'm a big Roman Wilson guy in the second round. I don't know if the Eagles go that route, but plug and play slot guy, really good route runner, good after the catch, can be a vertical slot. I love his game. Ricky Pearsall from Florida. But then you can even go further down. So many other guys we haven't even named. Javon Baker from UCF. It's really exciting to see where some of these guys are going to end up and how their career goes.
Yeah, definitely. Looking forward to that as well. As far as Patreon is concerned, want to welcome our newest member, Travis. He is now a Patreon member, and he's privy to all the great perks we've been dropping. Adam and I have been dropping a lot of intel as much as we can when we get something on our Discord channel that our Patreon members get automatically with a Patreon membership. So Travis and others are now privy to that, and we'll continue to do that. Adam's been putting great contract breakdowns, so we'll try to have the Parris, Campbell, Will Grier, and Tyler Hall ones up soon if they're not already. I haven't checked; they may be up already, but we'll have those as well. And normally on Wednesday, every other Wednesday we do our Ask ITB live stream. We're not going to. We have some scheduling conflicts, so for our Patreon members, bear with us. We'll probably resume it again next Wednesday, and maybe try to sandwich an extra one in there for not being able to do it this Wednesday. All right, so that is basically it. We got your mock draft, Andrew. We got Greg Cosell, the intel with Greg Cosell, and you're going to also have stuff on the website insidethebirds.com throughout the week. We've got our Patreon stuff covered. Let's get into some of the signings here. And the biggest one, and this is what always makes me laugh, right? About doing the podcast and how things happen. Last podcast, Adam and I were talking about how the Devontae Parker signing was good for outside wide receiver depth, but if he makes the team, right? But it really didn't solve their issue at slot. So you could say Devontae Parker's the number 3, but the Eagles really needed a number 3 receiver for when they're in 11 personnel, which we expect they'll be in about 60% of the time, right? And they didn't have one. So we went through the list, Andrew, of all the slot receivers out there. And they all kind of fall into the same mold. And Parris Campbell's name came up, and I was like, man, it's really important that you have a good slot receiver when you're an 11 personnel heavy team. And Parris Campbell just has a track record of not being healthy. So I was like, I'm not sure I would go that route. And then a few days later, the Eagles signed Parris Campbell. So there's a cool backstory to this, but I just want your impression coming out of college, coming out of Ohio State, and what you've seen from him so far in the NFL, Andrew, because he has played outside and he has played inside. He has both inside outside versatility. Where do you project him, and where do you think he's best?
I thought he's best in the slot, and I just never saw him as a high volume type of guy, which is why I was surprised that he went as high as he did. Obviously, there's other traits that he has that were pretty intriguing coming out. But I just saw him as a sporadic player that can be a flash guy in an offense and really and just be a difference maker, but not necessarily a focal point of the offense, if that makes sense. But the injury history you mentioned, Geoff, I mean, all those things taken into consideration. Look, I think what the Eagles did is they draft proofed their roster going into the draft. So you have Parker, you have Campbell there. You don't have a glaring hole behind Devontae and AJ. Obviously, they're going to probably look to upgrade there through the draft. There's going to be a younger player coming in, but we'll see. He's not somebody that you might want to write his name in pencil when you're doing your early 53 man roster projections. But he'll have an opportunity. So will Devontae Parker. I'm just not overly enthralled by those signings. I don't know if they move the needle very much.
The thing about Parris Campbell to me is like he's almost like a player without a true position. I mean, this kid came out of Ohio State and he ran a 4.31, and people were like, whoa, because if you remember, he came out at a time where Ohio State receivers, right, eh, because of the offense they run, very pro stylish, very run heavy, they don't always star in college, right, the way they do in the NFL. Mike Thomas, another example. There are a couple of guys who've come out of Ohio State who've really done well in the NFL that maybe didn't have unbelievable numbers, but they tested really well. And when a guy runs a 4.31, Andrew, you automatically want to say, man, that's outside receiver material. You want that speed on the outside. You want to stress a defense. And he's actually got decent size at 6'1", or at least he came out of college, 6'1", 205 ish. But if you look, A, he struggled to stay healthy, and B, he had his best year in the Colts offense and his healthiest year, 2022, 2 years ago, as a slot receiver, right? When he caught 63 passes for 623 yards. He wound up emerging as basically
Right.
Matt Ryan's, top target that year. It was a terrible year for the Colts. He had 91 targets. It was so staggering what he was able to do because up to that year, he had never had more than 24 targets, never had more than 18 catches, never had more than 200 yards. And all of a sudden, he breaks out. But the weird thing is, Andrew, right? He averages that year. It was something like under I forget what the yards per, it was like 9.9 yards per catch instead of the 11, 12, 13, 14 that you would expect from a guy with 4.3 speed. So that's why I feel like he's a person without a position. But here you put him in the slot, and yeah, maybe you're not getting as much vertical ability, but you have AJ Brown and Devontae Smith for that.
Yeah, he can operate the short to intermediate levels. He would be the quintessential guy for those dump offs that they did last year. Get him in space and see if he can take advantage of it with his speed. But yeah, he's going to be going competing with Devontae Parker, I guess, for the not necessarily the slot job, the third receiver job on the Eagle in the pecking order there. I just don't know what either player really has left. But look, you got two veterans in there. You draft a guy, you have some of those guys that you and Adam have mentioned, the futures deal, and then Gata, Jacob Harris, Griffin Hebert, and those type of guys that are going to be uh, competing for one of those very final spots. So we'll see.
Yeah. So, what our understanding of his fit with the Eagles, and Adam Kaplan has also provided some intel here, just based on sourcing, is that he can be a number. His role could change. He could be a number three receiver, like slot receiver, if they want to be heavy 11, right? And they're going up against a team where they feel they can exploit him. If not, he could play the outside, maybe over Devontae Parker. Maybe he's like your top outside receiver if there's an injury, or if you want to slide Brown or Devontae Smith inside, you can play Parris Campbell on the outside. Now, last year he was with the Giants, Andrew, and he went right back to being sort of the Parris Campbell of the first 3 years, not from an injury standpoint, from production standpoint. He only had 20 catches for 104 yards, which is, for him, like that's, coming off 63 for 623. It's like, what happened? Plus, he also
Yeah.
averaged 5.2 yards per catch. What we've been told was that he kind of had some bad practices. He just wasn't performing well in practice, and the Giants went in different directions. The Giants were trying to work Jalen Hyatt in. They're trying to work Waller in as a slot tight end when he was healthy. Who else did they have? They had Darius Slayton, on
Isaiah
the outside.
Hodgins. They had
Hodgins,
Hodgins, Isaiah
right,
Hodgins. Yeah.
right, right. So, in the past, we're used to Campbell having unproductive years because of injury. This is just one where he was, just not giving the Giants coaching staff, as we understand it, what they were looking for in practice.
Yeah, it's something to keep an eye on. But again, that's another reason why you want to pencil his name in when you're doing your 53. You don't want to just assure him a roster spot. He's going to have to earn it. Certainly, after the way that last season ended, I was sort of underwhelmed with the signing. But you know what? You're getting a veteran player with some athleticism and who has inside outside versatility for a very low cost. Why not? See what you
Yeah.
have.
Yep, 100%. So, and listen, the Eagles, as you mentioned, this is a position that they draft proof themselves, but if they want to draft a receiver in any round, they can feel comfortable that guy can come in and compete as well. There's a funny backstory, as many of our listeners know, but some of our new ones, Andrew, and I know you know it, know about Parris Campbell, because this is sort of a full circle moment for the franchise. In
Yeah.
2019, the Eagles had a second round pick, and they were debating, as we had reported back then, Do they take Parris Campbell, who was the guy that a lot of the personnel staff liked, or buckle up here because I know this is going to drive some folks mad, but JJ Arthego-Whiteside, who was more of a analytics darling, big bodied, contested catch guy. And, as we've discussed many times, when you have two factions sort of hashing it out, the owner himself, who says he did not make the pick, and it's true, he didn't make the pick, but the owner let it be known that he preferred the JJ Arthego-Whiteside pick. Now, what do you think the head picker is going to do when the owner sort of speaks up and says, "Well, this is what I prefer"? Go with the owner, and so that's what led to
Oh, of
them picking
course.
JJ. Yeah, right. What do you remember?
So yeah,
Like, think about how you remember what you remember of JJ Arthego-Whiteside versus Parris Campbell.
I never really liked J Jaw going back to this my scouting process through the draft. I had him ranked maybe fourth round just because lack of separation. I just didn't see a whole lot of upside, and I thought it would be a specific team that he would be a fit for. Didn't see the fit here in Philadelphia. A little underwhelmed by that pick. But if you remember that whole kind of go back to that draft, I went through so many different pro days to see these different safeties. I saw Nasir Adderley at Delaware. I went to Maryland to see Darnell Savage. I went
Mhm.
out to Virginia to see Juan Thornhill. Tim Houck actually put Juan Thornhill through his workout, through a private workout. So I thought for sure in that second round it was going to be one of those safeties. Sure enough, it was J.J. Arthega-Whiteside. I had Parris Campbell ranked a little bit higher to answer your question, but not much higher. I didn't really like Parris Campbell too much either coming out.
All right. Well, it's still a full circle moment to bring him back. Let's look now at Eagles wide receiver core, because in the last pod, Adam and I were saying the team still needed to sign a wide receiver. It needed somebody who could play the slot for when they're in 11 personnel. So they have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Devontae Parker, Parris Campbell, and our good friend and specialist Britton Covey. That is kind of your top five right now, with Covey always getting a leg up, right? Because he's also a punt returner and special teams is always big. But again, Parker, Campbell, they're 1 year deals. The Eagles have a lot. They have stockpiled potential players to come and maybe have a really impressive OTAs, impressive training camp, and try to steal a spot. So I'll go through the names and you just tell me a name or two that really might jump out at you. You have Joseph Nagata, who had a really nice start to training camp last year out of Clemson, big physical guy, kind of
Yeah.
regressed to the mean as camp went along. Jacob Harris, who we've talked about with all of his athleticism. I mean, he with the Rams, he was like a gadget player. He's so fast and quick and shifty, and also can punt. We reported that. I don't think a lot of people know that. Griffin Herbert, Shaquan Davis, Austin
Hebert.
Watkins
Hebert.
Jr. I'm sorry, what? Hebert? My bad. Hebert. Griffin Hebert.
Hebert.
Yeah, I don't want to make him related to Justin. So it's Griffin Hebert or Bobby A. Bear.
Yeah.
Shaq Davis, Austin Watkins Jr., and then of course there's a potential draft pick. So of those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 names, Andrew, if you're gonna bet on somebody to unseat Devontae Parker, right, or Parris Campbell, who might it be?
Well, Joseph Ngata is a player that I really like going back to Clemson. I remember, sort of depicting him as my breakout player back in 2020. Struggled with injuries, didn't really happen. I spoke to Joseph recently, actually, Geoff, and he's out in Florida training. He's training's going well. He's someone that you want to see if he's able to cover kicks and see if he's able to provide value on to Michael Clay on special teams. So we'll have to see how that goes. But he has the athleticism and the body type to maybe grab one of those last spots. I don't know if the next guy that I'm going to mention has an opportunity, but he's someone to keep an eye on in training camp. Griffin Hebert from Louisiana Tech. Uh, he was a tight end in college, small tight end, 6'1", 240. My understanding is the plan for him is to fully commit to playing wide receiver, to drop down to about 225. He's about 222 right now. They want him to learn the outside first, but also have that slot versatility. So that's kind of where the Eagles envision him right now. We'll see how that goes. I mean, they brought him in late last season, and he has some athleticism.
So he's 6'1". Is that what you said?
6'1", yeah,
6'1", 225.
to 222 right now, as I understand.
222. That's sort of like some Anquan Bolden, like Bill. I can't almost even picture. I mean, for perspective, we were just saying Parris Campbell has some nice size for the position at 6'1", 205. So you're putting an extra 20 pounds on this guy, right? About 225-ish,
But
right?
for
And then,
perspective, I guess AJ's like 6'1", 220.
yeah, that's
He,
true, but he's
he
different.
yeah. But I'm comparing the body type and the frame.
Right.
So yeah, we'll see. I mean, I always saw him as a big slot, and obviously that they want him to still learn the slot. So we'll see. And he has played a lot of special teams, as one person told me at Louisiana Tech. So that also gives him a leg up. Also, Jacob Harris is another one who has some special teams upside as well. If you're
Definitely.
looking for one of those guys to maybe have an edge and eke out one of those final spots.
Right. And like I mentioned, if a guy can punt, sort of like your backup punter in case. And I know the Rams
Yeah,
liked him as a gadget player because the Rams, it's a big part of their offense. Kellen Moore probably is more gadget inclined than Nick Sirianni, mainly because every single coach, offensive minded coach in the league these days, is a little bit more gadget minded than Nick Sirianni. But we'll see if that kind of could play to his favor. But clearly a good athlete who has some experience already in the NFL. All right, let's go to the other offensive player that the Eagles signed. I got to admit, this one surprised me a little bit. It's not surprising that the Eagles arm themselves with a fourth quarterback because you usually take four into OTAs. But usually, if you're going to add another quarterback, right, for OTAs or what you want to call the camp body, it's usually the young developmental one. Now I know they have Tanner McKee, who is a young and developmental one, but you don't often see three quarterbacks on a roster who've all fit the quote unquote veteran bill. But
right.
obviously, Will Grier does fit that bill. It's a 1-year deal. It's rare, again, that you see a fourth quarterback who's developmental. You have to think here that his experience in the scheme, though, is big here, and that Kellen Moore probably said, "Hey, let's bring in a guy who knows what I like to do here, just to like kind of help out." And I don't want to say help out. You don't present it that way to the player, but you remember when Chip Kelly signed Dennis Dixon, and everybody thought,
Yeah,
"Oh,
yeah,
he's
exactly.
going to
Yeah,
get
right.
he's going to get his guy."
Yeah, just to help sort of implement the system and make it easier. He's not a threat to Tanner McKee for the number 3 spot. Look, competition brings out the best in everyone, but right now Tanner McKee's the 3. Now, my understanding of Grier, going back to the whole pre-draft process, really good leadership and someone he's really good with camaraderie, good locker room guy. Doesn't have a big arm, but he's an aggressive passer. And I think that maybe some of those leadership qualities could help in distributing the information, helping everyone get on the same page, if
He's
that
had
makes
a
sense.
very interesting career, right? I mean, he started off in Florida, transferred to West Virginia. I believe that's how it went. He was a third round pick of the Panthers in
Wow. Yeah.
2019. I mean, clearly got overdrafted there. He's played 2 games in the NFL for Carolina, of course, 0-2, 54. I mean, I'm not even going to give his stats because 2 starts is really not, especially for the Panthers, is not any kind of sample size. But like you're saying, bring in a guy, good in the locker room, knows the offense. I think that's the key here. Whenever you have a new coordinator, and I joke about Chip Kelly bringing in Dennis Dixon, but he really did bring him in because Chip was about to introduce an offense that the entire league wasn't familiar with, let alone the Philadelphia Eagles, right? And Dennis Dixon was there. I think he was on the Ravens practice squad. He became available,
Yeah.
brought him in. It kind of became like a big, oh my God, Chip's just trying to go get college players from Oregon, right? And Dennis Dixon was a hell of a college player, by the way. He was a great
Yeah.
player
I
before
loved him at
Mariota.
Oregon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But obviously, Michael Vick got the job, and then Foles was the backup. And I don't even think Dixon made the team. But you see the similarity there of a coordinator who just wants somebody who can like kind of help someone out, teach the scheme, understand the scheme. Sometimes you can help not by literally telling people, but like you go out there and you play the game the way your coordinator wants it to be played, and then other people watch and go, "Oh, that's what we do."
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's a really beneficial signing, but not one that I would expect. I wouldn't read anything into it in terms of what they may think of Tanner McKee. Tanner McKee is still very much in their plans. He is their developmental quarterback, and Grier is there really to, as you outlined very, very well, to really show and explain further from a player perspective what Kellen Moore is looking to accomplish offensively.
I kind of think that watching Tanner McKee contrasted with Kenny Pickett in training camp is going to be a pretty cool storyline. I think it's going to be
I agree.
fascinating, actually.
I agree. I like what I saw from Tanner McKee last preseason. So
Yeah, definitely
we'll
a guy
see
who
if
had
he's able to build off him.
control. Yeah, control the offense, threw with confidence. Who was the receiver that he just loved throw? The guy that they signed, Johnny something,
Tyree
right?
Cleveland.
No,
Oh,
no, no. There
Johnny
was
King.
Johnny King. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Johnny King and Tyree Cleveland. He threw to him a lot too.
He did. That's right. Smart guy. A new guy. One guy had been in the NFL. One guy just shows up the day before, and it's like, bing, bing. I'm going to throw it to you.
Yeah.
So that was fun.
First down, Johnny King, man.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about some of the defensive signings and things going on with the Eagles. Before we do that, we're going to pause for a second and hear a word from our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
Okay, switching to defense. Another 1-year contract, value signing, and much like we talked about the nickel back position, this is now the nickel corner. I'm sorry, the slot position on offense. This is nickel corner that we're looking at. Tyler Hall, a guy who was signed to a 1-year deal. He has played for the Falcons and the Rams. He's played in 31 games. So automatically right there, Andrew, with 6 starts, that sort of sets the radar up. You know, the Eagles needed a nickel corner. Avonte Maddox is still out there. They've got guys to compete at that position, and CJ Gardner-Johnson can play that. But here's a guy who has played it, has had some starts under his belt. I feel like you can call it a camp. I don't even call it a camp body. You could call it one of those fringe signings. But I mean, the guy has some credentials here.
Yeah, my understanding is that they had multiple offers, and he chose to come to Philadelphia because of the opportunity at the nickel corner spot. That's how the team views him, predominantly as a nickel corner. Obviously, most of his snaps in the NFL have come there, but he also can play outside and play some safety. Knew Marcus Epps. They played together at Wyoming, and he trained with Marcus at his gym, EBS Performance, out in California for a few seasons with some Eagles. So there's some familiarity there. We'll see how it goes. And if anyone is unfamiliar with this game, wants to learn more, watch the game Raiders Steelers from last season to kind of get an idea of what Tyler Hall can do.
Did you find him to be physical? Did you find him to be laterally quick? What stood out?
Yeah, scrappy. I liked his lateral quickness. I thought he was tough and competitive, and I want to see if he's able to kind of build off that and see how it translates into training camp. Because look, right now, and a lot's going to change. We're only in March, but it's Zach McPherson, Tyler Hall. I mean, Mario Goodrich. Like, there's going to be opportunity here, and I can understand why he chose to come here. And then we haven't even mentioned Isaiah Rodgers. He's another player that's going to be in the conversation as well. But I think when you're sort of trying to find your destination, that this one makes a lot of sense.
I can tell that nothing like sort of ticks you off more than when somebody automatically assumes that Isaiah Rodgers is going to be a really good nickel because he's like, because he was decent for the Colts and he's 5'9", right? So he would
Yeah.
kind of fit the bill. But
Yeah, nothing. It drives me nuts. Don't sleep on. Don't forget about it. It's like, no, I'm very well aware, of his game. I just, you have to let it. He has to get reinstated first, but then you have to clear the other hurdle. He hasn't played football in a year,
right.
and you have to let it all play out.
And as you've pointed many times, it's not like he was a pure nickel corner with the Colts. I mean, he played more outside, way more outside than nickel with the Colts.
And he had to because Kenny Moore was playing slot. But the point remains, he was predominantly an outside corner, and he's going to be playing. If they're going to give him a look inside, you play wherever they tell you to play, and his body and his frame translates more favorably to playing inside. But he still has to prove that he could do it, right? I mean, that's not a slam dunk by any means.
Right. So where do you think where would you put Eli Rick's situation here? Because to me, Eli Ricks is an outside corner because of his build, who was asked on the fly as an undrafted rookie to play nickel. You chronicled it. You did a great job with your rookie diary. all year long, really getting inside his head. And he was very, I thought, honest and candid about doing a job he was asked to do, but not one that he was very familiar with. And I sort of wonder, will they kind of try to force feed him into this mix also, or will they recognize that he really, if you want him to function best, you got to put him in a position to succeed, and that would be outside corner more than nickel? Or do they say, hey, he's now done both. Let's try to do the whole cross train and see which one, where it works out best for us.
Yeah, he took his lumps and he was very accountable. He didn't hide from it, didn't affect his confidence at all. And I also think that it speaks to his football acumen that of all the other players that were on the roster early on, Sean Desai identified him as being somebody that he thought could transition to that and be able to kind of carry out his assignment effectively. So I think that really speaks to how quickly he was able to pick things up. But I view him more as an outside corner, Geoff. I know that he's proven that he can play nickel, but to varying degrees. I think he's drafted like when going through the whole pre-draft process. He's 6'2", 190. He's in a long arms. He's an outside corner. He could do it in a pinch, but you saw late last season that when he was on the outside with Ringo and they were getting some reps out there, that was where he was at his best and most comfortable.
Right, right. So as you summed up before, right now your true nickelback competition group is Zach McPherson coming off an Achilles, Mario Goodrich, who was like the darling for a couple of weeks last year, then got released and brought back to the practice squad.
He had a good camp, yeah.
He did. He definitely did, and probably a little bit more experience in the slot than say a Josh Jobe or a Ricks. Or if he wasn't, he just
Job never repped in the slot.
Right. So Goodrich, McPherson, Tyler Hall, who of that bunch is the most experienced and has NFL time there. And at times, CJ Gardner-Johnson will probably move into the slot. I just don't know if that's their base slot. When they're in nickel, which is their base defense, are they playing CJ Gardner in the slot? Because then you need two safeties behind him. Or is he sort of more sub-package slot when you have a slot receiver and a flex tight end? Someone's going 2x2 on you or 1x3, right? That's when he comes down. Yeah, that's where I think that he's coming down and playing that position. So you really do need a true nickel corner here out of this group. You can't just say that that's going to be CJ Gardner-Johnson's job.
Yeah, exactly. And I may have, mocked a nickel type of player to the Eagles in there, but look, you're going to have to read it to find out.
I may already know who you're thinking about, but I may not. So we'll know. I have said there are a lot of corners in this draft who have that inside out versatility.
I think what you think you got me on this one, but it's going to be one out of left field that you might not be expecting.
Oh, okay, good. Exactly. All right. Moving on. So Haason Reddick situation, everybody's been curious about it. I had a tweet over the weekend. I was sort of adding some context to another tweet that explained a Jeremy Fowler report that the Falcons and the Cardinals were, keen on Haason Reddick in a trade. As it was put to me by league sources, the Cardinals really stand out as a team to watch, which is kind of, we talked about full circle moment for Parris Campbell. Haason Reddick going back to Arizona would definitely be a full circle as an edge rusher instead of an inside linebacker, would definitely be a full circle moment for him, but it makes sense for a variety of reasons. You have the head coach who knows him. You have the defensive coordinator who knows him, the scheme he excelled in, obviously, when Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rallis were here with the Eagles. Scheme, same thing. They need pass rushers. They have picks. And now people are saying, well, they have picks. Why would they go trade for Reddick when they have all these picks? Well, because, a third round pick, you don't know what you're going to get you might get, I don't want to pick on anybody. I was going to say Davion Taylor. I'll fess up, and I hate picking on the kid. It's not his fault. He was a third round pick, but the point I'm trying to get is you don't know with a third round pick. You may trust your scouting and you may think you have a player on the rise, but to think you're getting Haason Reddick's skill set, even if you use the first round pick, right? To think you're getting Haason Reddick's skill set immediately right off the bat, plug and play, going to give you 12 to 15 sacks, a ton of pressures, quarterback hits, forced fumbles. No, that's why you would use a pick to get Haason Reddick, because it would most likely be not a first round pick. And probably at this point, as we've seen some trades already happen in the NFL where the value doesn't match the trade, right? It probably is not going to be a second round pick either. It's probably going to be either late day 2 or early day 3, or maybe a combination of compensation there. But I was told that the Cardinals would be the team that, for those reasons we just mentioned, and Andrew, they do have a lot of cap and cash space because they don't have a ton of high priced players, that would make the most sense and be the logical fit.
Yeah, they need pass rush in the worst way, and obviously the familiarity with Jonathan Gannon certainly helps that cause. So I think that's a team to keep an eye on. I also couldn't help but wonder if a team maybe like the Ravens or another playoff bound team like the Texans, who are really close, to add another pass rusher of that caliber, premier pass rusher to put your defense over the top, might make some sense there. But yeah, I like that fit in Arizona for many of the reasons that you outlined. So we'll have to keep an eye on that.
So I think that interesting that you said Texans with D'Amico there, and they do run the sort of a wide nine variation, I believe, on third downs.
Yeah.
But they would run into the same problem that the Eagles run into, where Haason, if you're going to trade for Haason Reddick, you're going to give him a new contract, right? Might be 2-3 years, and he's going to probably get over the 20 million mark. I would assume that's what's going to, or else you don't make the trade, right? And I don't know if the Texans, after just signing Danielle Hunter for $20 million to play one side and having Will Anderson playing the other side, if you're going to trade for Reddick and give him a new deal when you've got those two guys there, right? Because that's sort of like the same situation for the Eagles. You turning him into a very, very, very highly paid situational guy. Ravens is interesting. I don't know where they are from a cash and cap. They usually have, they just spent some money on Derrick Henry, not a ton, but obviously Lamar Jackson makes a lot of money, but they might lose Clowney, right? So you would they're another team though that seems to, once a guy hits a certain age, not want to be in bed with that guy for more than a year. They're perfectly fine bringing in veterans like Odell Beckham and Calais Campbell, and they've done it, Kevin Zeitler, but they usually do it on their own terms for shorter terms.
Sure. Yeah. He kind of seems like a Ravens edge rusher though, doesn't 100%. He? Haason? Yeah. Oh yeah. I could see him there. Well, I don't know. I think that would just put that defense over the top. Maybe would be a player that they might consider making an exception for, but we'll have to see, man. This is a fascinating situation, the whole Haason Reddick thing. I mean, the premier pass rusher in the league, you would think they would find a way to make it work, but
yeah. And by the way, to your point, it feels like they've been trying to draft their own Haason Reddick for the last few years, because they took David Ajabo out of Michigan, a stand-up pass rusher who had some juice around the edge. I think he tore his Achilles at his pro day, right?
The pro day, yeah. And then they had Owe from Penn State.
And I was going to mention Owe, who just tested unbelievably that year that he came out. So yeah, it does feel like that they've been trying to recreate that guy on their own cross-controlled terms. Can you imagine if Owe and Ajabo just like come into their own this year? Because I think they're all one draft year apart, right? So like this is the time to really for them to emerge. If they do, man, the Ravens were always tough, but that would make them even tougher, and they're already good inside with Matabuke, who they just gave a lot of money to. All right. Yeah. We are going to move on and talk a little bit about the college. Pro days are in effect. You got visits going on. I do have a slight bone to pick with you, Andrew DiCecco, about your phrasing on a tweet, which we'll get to in a second. First, we're going to stop to hear a word from friends at Sky Motor Cars.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schiller, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
Okay, so whether your resolution is to save money, eat better, or stress less, HelloFresh is here to help you do all three. Say hello to your most delicious year yet with your fresh ingredients and chef-crafted recipes at a price you're going to love, delivered right to your door. So you've resolved to actually sit down and eat dinner around the table. What do you do about those nights when your schedule is jam-packed? That's when you turn to HelloFresh's lineup of quick and easy meals, and that includes their 15-minute recipes designed to help minimize mealtime stress. Who doesn't like the sound of that? Every time we eat a HelloFresh meal, whether it's quick and easy or any of their other types, we are blown away by the freshness, the taste, and the overall quality. Tried so many great options. There's seafood, there's steak, there's chicken, vegetarian items, anything you want, HelloFresh makes it. And now they've got a great deal. If you go to HelloFresh.com/EaglesFree and use that code EaglesFree, you get free breakfast for life. That's one breakfast item per box while your subscription is active. Free breakfast for life at HelloFresh.com/EaglesFree. It's all one word, lowercase EAGLESFREE. And again, use the promo code EaglesFree. Act now for America's #1 meal kit. All right, if you hop into Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Jess sent you. You will get a great deal. So you had a tweet this week, right, about a certain player who's going to take a visit to the Philadelphia Eagles, and he's the son of a very famous player. So go ahead and tell us who's visiting, who's got a plan to visit the Eagles.
Yeah, Brendan Rice, wide receiver from USC, son of NFL Hall of Fame wide receiver Jerry Rice. And big body guy, really physical at the catch point, good with contested catches, and physical, extremely physical. That jumps out when you watch him. So when you look at the body type and everything like that, he sort of fits the mold of that AJ Brown, big bodied guy that could complement what they already have there.
Right, definitely. And what really jumped out at me is, though, I think he had 12 touchdowns. He had a touchdown every 5.2 catches at USC, which shows you, A, he's not really a high volume receiver, but man, you throw the ball into him in certain situations. I bet he's a great red zone target. So to have 12 touchdowns on, how many catches did he wind up at? 45 catches. That's a pretty damn good ratio right there.
Yeah, that's a red zone weapon all the way.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm going to read your tweet and you tell me what bone I'm going to have to pick with you. USC wide receiver Brendan Rice, who has a top 30 visit scheduled with the Eagles early next month, will be partaking in cone drills, shuttle, and field work today at the school's pro day, source says. Where's my beef with this tweet?
Partaking? I don't know.
No. You called it a top 30 visit. Adam and I are very adamant on calling these things top 30 visits because people think this has been this misnomer top 30 because you do get 30 visits, like 30 college prospects, because it makes people think it's like this is a top 30 player, which Brendan Rice
you want me to put it in quotes? You want me to put it in
No, it's
quotes?
just we call them 30 visits, right? 30 visits.
Right.
It's all right. We'll let you we'll call it a rookie mistake. No, I joked about it because I reported, and we'll talk about this in a second, that the UCLA edge rusher Laiatu Latu, I hope I pronounced that correctly, Laiatu Latu.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's right.
Yes, yeah. I tweeted he is going to have a 30 visit, and I put it in quotes, a 30 visit with the Philadelphia Eagles, which he is at some point before the draft. And Jim Nagy responded to it, and Jim Nagy is the Senior Bowl he puts the Senior Bowl together. He's the organizer, the president, whatever you want to call it. He's done a great job with the Senior Bowl. And he wrote 30 visit, not top 30, and with the applause claps because I didn't call it a top 30. So, we get on people for
that. Noted.
All right. Because when we talk about Brendan Rice, this is a guy who's what round do you feel like he'll go in?
Probably 3, 4.
Yeah.
Probably 3.
So again, not like a top 30 type player, but that's okay. Are you intrigued at all by Brendan?
Yeah, definitely. The size, the catch radius, the physicality, the separation leaves something to be desired there. You'd like to see him be able to separate a little bit more on press, but I think that he's young enough and moldable that bringing him in there and you coach him up, he could definitely be a red zone weapon and someone that can affect all 3 levels of the field.
Awesome. Good stuff. All right. So as you reported, he'll have a 30 visit with the Eagles. Laiatu Latu, who will also have one. Interesting guy, right? Because he's explosive. I think he was the Pac-12 player of the year, defensive player of the year. He also had a neck injury in college that I'm sure people are going to be asking him about. What do you see when you watch tape on Letu, or when you watch him? What do you think?
Relentless pass rusher.
Yeah.
Um, fight is scrappy. He's tough as nails, tougher than a $2 steak, as I say. Yeah, I think he's somebody that you can step right in. He's going to be an impactful situational rusher, given what the Eagles already have there, and be somebody that can provide some pressure off the edge right off the bat. Really good hand usage.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's a lot to like with him. Obviously, the neck issue was a concern, and they're going to have to check out the medicals there. But yeah, I really liked his tape.
Yeah, I think so. He started off at Washington, if I'm not mistaken, right? And that's where he had
Yeah.
the neck injury. And I think he was advised to retire by. I was just googling a story on him from CBS Sports, because I don't really remember this. I mean, I try to watch as much college football, but this was when he was young. I think a lesser known guy, right? And then he didn't retire, and I guess he transferred to USC and really had an amazing last I guess what, year or two there.
Yeah, I lose track with all these guys transferring and
Ugh.
everything else. I forget how long they've been there, or some of them played 6 years.
Right. He was there for 2 years. So because he played 25 games for the Bruins. So he had 10 and a half sacks in 2022 and then 13 last year after playing no games in 2020. So that's when, 2020 neck injury, advised not to play. 2021 might have been the COVID year where I guess maybe he didn't play, and then came back 2022 as a Bruin and really kind of established himself as one of the better pass rushers in the country.
Yeah, he's phenomenal pass rusher. Plays with his hair on fire. His motor is the one thing that's really stands out when you watch him play. Doesn't ever let up on a single play. Violent, strong finisher. Um, Somebody who I think is going to be an immediate impact guy at the next level.
Awesome. And 6'4", 265, sort of perfect. I mean, I don't know if he's a hand in the dirt guy. I would assume at Oregon he's a stand-up pass rusher at 265. I
Yeah,
feel like
that's probably how I see him at the next level.
yeah. All right, good stuff there. You had a tweet also about the Eagles' local pro day. For those who don't know, you get to invite players from colleges that is considered like within your local region. They don't count against your 30 visits. Or you get to have a pro day and invite more people from the area, like
Yeah.
Villanova, Delaware, Temple, things like that. What can you tell us about that pro day? It's on April 17th, and anybody stands out that was invited to you?
Johnny Dixon from Penn State, your alma mater, of course. Is an interesting prospect. I really liked him, but he struggled with injuries. He wasn't able to compete at the combine, didn't do anything at pro day. So April 17th gives him some time to see what he's able to do. I project him more as a nickel guy. So that pedigree is going to be interesting, and see if he's able to maximize his opportunity. And also Deion Jennings, the linebacker from Rutgers, is someone who I really like. Very productive player during his time with the Scarlet Knights, and good size. And somebody that he might not get drafted, but I think he'll end up in a camp and be able to kind of carve out a role potentially at the next level.
Yeah, it's interesting, right, that they invited Deion Jennings, because doesn't Temple have a linebacker that is also draft eligible, like a guy who's going to get drafted pretty high, not pretty like first round, but going to get drafted?
He'll get drafted. Yeah, Jordan McGee. He'll get drafted. Well, where maybe fifth round, sixth round, something to that effect. I'll be at their pro day on Monday. A lot could be determined about that. See how he runs, see how he tests. I look forward to speaking with him again. I spoke to him at the combine at the podium. Really, really bright kid, and we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I'm really excited for it.
Awesome. So talk to me more about the pro days. This week you got coming up Temple, Rutgers, and Maryland. Along with Jordan
Yes.
McGee from Temple, who are you kind of keying in on for the Eagles in these pro days?
So Rutgers, obviously Max Melton, which is the guy that I assumed that you thought I was going to be projecting as the Eagles corner in the mock
Mm-hmm.
draft. I want to see what he's able to do, and I mean, this is a guy, characters off the charts, really good testing. Like he's gonna blow away the interview process that he already has, and going
Mm-hmm.
to continue to do that. So I want to see him parlay, his combine performance, Senior Bowl performance, and see what he's able to do. See what he's going to do there,
Mhm.
Deion Jennings is a player I'll be looking at, knowing that he's going to be at the Eagles local day. I want to see if he's able to showcase some of what he's able to do, so I get a better sense of where he's at athletically. And then Maryland's a really interesting one because they have two corners who I really like, one of which was at the NFL Combine. And Bo Braid, the safety, is someone that I really like, and I want to see how he runs and how he does in the cone drills, particularly. He's a sort of in the mold of a Sidney Brown, really
Mm.
physical. Spoke to him at the combine at the podium, but I want to see how he's able to move and what his lateral agility and quickness is like. So I expect there to be a lot of eyes on that pro day in particular.
You know, Maryland's always been a school that fascinates me because I mean, they very rarely have great football teams. They'll be fortunate sometimes to make a bowl, right? But
Right.
they put out NFL players who tend to be really strong athletic testers. You know, I mean, I think of like
Yeah.
Vernon Davis, right? And
Ty
Sean
John
Merriman.
Ty Johnson. I went to his pro day. He ran a 4.29.
Yeah. Yeah. Who's the didn't they have a corner who tested the guy got drafted by the Giants last year, right?
Deontay Banks. Deontay
Deontay
Banks.
Banks. Right. Trying to think of some other guys who have come out of there.
Stephon Diggs.
Stephon Diggs, thank you. Yeah, it's a strange school that doesn't really, even more so than Rutgers to me, doesn't really win a whole lot. Their quarterback is
They don't.
Tagovailoa's brother, right? Talia Tagovailoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, he might get
Oh,
drafted.
Darnell Savage. I forgot
Darnell
about
Savage.
Darnell Savage. Yeah.
Yeah, like they produce good. The Delmarva area in general produces a lot of great athletes. I know this because Penn State usually grabs them, and a lot of Penn State's best players, including I believe Chop Robinson, comes from the Delmarva area. They produce explosive athletes, and Maryland seems to be able to get them, but just not enough. And I think not enough linemen probably, because you really need linemen in sports, right? To
Yeah. They
consistently
don't. They
really
don't
be
have a lot.
good football.
So that one I'm really looking forward to in particular because I think there's going to be a lot of attention there given the amount of you talked about all the athletic testing and the intriguing players that they may have. They have two corners, like I said, who I really like. So we'll see if there's any Eagles representatives there.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll have that reported on Twitter, of course. Andrew DiCecco on X, sorry, that is now it's called. Yeah, I just think in my mind, if like if Iowa and Maryland could just blend Iowa's defensive line and offensive linemen with Maryland's skill position players, you might
Yeah.
actually have like a pretty good Big Ten football team there. It's just that, well, they're far apart and they can't do that. So, but it is funny how often the Iowas, the Wisconsins, the Nebraska. I bet you're going to see it more with Nebraska now that Matt Rule is there. Those teams raid New Jersey and the Delmarva area for athletes. They're fine online. They're always trying to get running backs and receivers and even some quarterbacks from the
Oh,
East
that's what
Coast.
I wanted to tell you. Aside from Devin Leary, there's another player in the draft that's from Sicklerville.
Really?
I just saw it. I just saw it the other day, and I wanted to text you, but I got distracted. But like, I don't remember who it was. I'll have to check on that.
All right, that's
It
pretty
wasn't
interesting.
it wasn't Devin Leary. There was somebody else.
Devin Leary from Timber Creek High School. Absolutely. All right, Kentucky
That's the
quarterback.
Jeff Mosher stomping grounds over
My
there at
neck of the
Sicklerville.
woods. I like to say I'm all over South Jersey because you can find me in any town in South Jersey basically on any day, especially with the coaching that I'm doing for softball. But hey, yeah, the Timber Creek area, Winslow, my neck of the woods, and always a hotbed for some good athletic talent. All right. Next podcast is going to be you and Adam Kaplan. I'm going to be away. So you guys are going to talk about whatever happens between now and then. There'll probably be some more signings. You'll probably talk about what Adam's going to hear and learn while he's at owners meeting. So everybody should be in tune for that. That's back-to-back pods for you. Are you going to be able to handle that? You all right?
You called me the Matt Stairs of pinch hitting, so I think I got it, man. You got to have faith in me.
All right. I got faith in you. Sounds great. Hope everybody enjoys March Madness. And of course, the Phillies, as Andrew just said, begin this week as well on Thursday, opening day against the Braves. If you have a chance, catch my Powder Blue podcast that I do with Frank Close. It's a Phillies podcast. Always love talking Phillies and Major League Baseball, so catch that if you can. That's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Birds. It's the leading podcast in Eagles intel. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the bird. Be sure to check out our friends at phlsportsnation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out at phlsportsnation.com and on Twitter at phlsportsnation.